Hi everyone, here's the recording for our small group session for Monday, September 11th, 2017. We are thinking about analyzing primary documents. So today we are going to be looking at the difference between primary and secondary documents, secondary sources, reviewing what SAMI means. You already know what SAM means. We talked about that already. Now we're just adding a Y to it. Identifying keywords and then actually looking at a primary source. All right, so before we get too in-depth into this, I'm going to show you this quick video about secondary and primary sources.
The content of your research project will be made up of primary and secondary sources. Primary and secondary sources come in many different formats, and there are benefits for referencing both types in your assignment. It can be difficult to figure out if a source is considered primary or secondary, but don't worry because we'll explain the differences here so that you can decide which are best to use in your assignment. Primary sources are first-hand accounts of an event, topic, or historical time period. Anything that contains original information on a topic is considered a primary source. Examples of primary sources include things like letters or personal diaries or journals, original photographs, speeches, newspaper reports, creative works like paintings, plays, and music, and research data or surveys. It's a good idea to use primary sources in research papers because it allows you to form your own argument to defend your thesis, since the information you're using is unfiltered by another person's point of view. You're able to critique an original work using your own ideas. Secondary sources interpret, critique, or analyze primary sources. It is information that is created or published from primary sources. Examples of secondary sources include things like textbooks, essays or reviews, encyclopedias, newspaper articles that analyze or discuss events and ideas, and criticisms and commentaries. It's a good idea to use secondary sources in research papers because you can learn about new perspectives that you may not have even considered, and they can also strengthen your own argument in the assignment. For example, if you're writing a history paper about how the diversity of a city shifted during a certain time period, you could use data from the U.S. Census Bureau to compare populations across the decades. This type of information would be considered a primary source, as it's data that's simply been collected and compiled. There is no analysis. That's what you'll be doing in the paper. For the same topic, you could also use an article from a newspaper that reviews the data and draws conclusions or analysis from it, such as other ways in which the population might change or grow over time. Some sources, like scholarly journals and newspapers, can serve as both a primary and a secondary source, depending on which article you're reading. Articles that include things like eyewitness accounts or interviews and are published close to the time of the event you're researching would be a primary source. Articles that are published after the fact and include analysis or critiques are secondary sources. Primary and secondary sources can both strengthen and improve your research immensely by providing you with information to create an argument and defend your thesis statement. Now that you know how to differentiate between them, try using them in your own assignment.
All right, guys, so that video, and you can see the link is also up here, it's a great little short video that explains the difference between primary and secondary sources, and you also have the written explanation here. That primary source is a document, but it's not just a written document, okay? It can be a physical object which was written or created during that time period, but it has to have been created during that time period. All right, and so these can include original documents like excerpts or translations are also acceptable, but diaries, speeches, manuscripts, letters. So William Bradford's diary, his journal, that's an original document. That's a primary source, okay? That would be one. Now, your paper about that would be considered a secondary source. Also, creative works like poetry, drama, and then also relics or artifacts. Those are all considered primary sources. Secondary sources interpret and analyze those primary sources. And they're just one step or more removed from that event. So that would be like somebody now looking back on what happened during the Civil Rights Movement and describing the event and talking about it. They weren't actually there, but they are having their own opinion about it. So that would be a secondary source. And textbooks do that, magazine articles, histories, criticisms, commentaries, and encyclopedias. All right, now I know the video talked about a research project, and that's not what we're doing, but I just wanted you to make sure you understood the difference between a primary source and a secondary source. All right, and so when you are analyzing a primary source, you want to be thinking about that whole SAMmy method. And we talked about the SAM method. So you're thinking about who is the speaker? Who is the audience? Who are they talking to? What method are they using to get their message across? What is the message? And the why we're adding is, what is your opinion about all of this? All right. When you're analyzing a historical document, that analysis partly is your opinion, and then you're using things from that document to back up your opinion. And it's good to do that by looking for key words. So when you are identifying key words, you want to look for words that jump out at you while you are reading. These words are usually nouns or verbs. And when you look at just the key words you've chosen from a section, you will have a basic understanding of that text. But you don't want to pick words that you don't know what they mean. All right, make sure that you understand the key words. Also, don't pick those helping verbs, fanboys, transitions, any of those words. Make sure they are nouns or verbs. All right, so let's look right here. This is an example of a primary source. This is Common Sense by Thomas Paine. So if you're looking at this first bullet point, it says we're going to look for key words. Every quiet method for peace has been ineffectual. Our prayers have been rejected with disdain and only tended to convince us that nothing flatters vanity or confirms obstinacy in kings more than repeated petitioning. And nothing hath contributed more than that very measure to make the kings of Europe absolute. Whereof, since nothing but blows will do, for God's sake, let us come to a final separation, and not leave the next generation to be cutting throats under the violated, unmeaning names of parent and child. So we are talking here about this is not from the Declaration of Independence, and which is what we are also going to be looking at this week, which is also a primary document, but Thomas Paine is also talking about separating from England. All right, so some of our key words here might be, remember we're looking for nouns and verbs. So we could be thinking about the word peace. That might be a really good one. Rejected. And even a whole phrase, rejected with disdain. That could also work. But rejected would be a strong verb. All right. And contributed. That could be another good verb. Repeated, petitioning, or just petitioning. And using these keywords to think about what this means as a whole. Where he's saying, everything they have tried to do has been rejected by the King of England. They petitioned, and he's become even worse because of that. And he said, since nothing but blows, and blows would be another good key word, will do, he's saying, we've tried everything. Now we're just going to have to fight. We've tried talking. It didn't work, so now we're going to have to fight. And he says, let us do that. We have to do that to come to this final separation. And so if we had class today, so I want you to think about this on your own, looking at this second bulleted point. What are some of the key words in this point, and what is Thomas Paine talking about here? All right, so that's just a quick look at primary and secondary sources. We are going to be going more in depth on that this week, especially as we look at the Declaration of Independence. If you go ahead into the OHS, if you are able to and look, you will see there is an explanation of the assignment that we are doing this week for our extended constructed response that focuses on the Declaration of Independence. Now, are you caught up on all your assignments? Have you completed and turned in the Early American Narrative Short Constructed Response? Have you taken the Unit 1 test? Have you been completing your Paths to Mastery quizzes? You have to have at least 5 of those completed by the end of our cycle. All right, and you need to make sure that you're getting your assignments turned in. That's also part of your Path to Mastery grade. If you have done all that and you're able to, go to the OHS, look at the videos for today, look at the explanation of the assignment that we are doing this week. Also, make sure that you're working in the USA Test Prep module for Instructional Cycle 1. Thanks, guys. If you have questions, let me know. You can email me, or you can come to Raise Your Grade. They are Tuesday through Friday. You'll see it in your schedule. You can also sign up for a learner conference. There is a link on the homepage in the OHS under the little announcement about needing more help. So you can click there and sign up for a learner conference if you'd rather have some one-on-one help and not come to Raise Your Grade. Guys, have a great day. Email me whatever you need, and I will see you guys tomorrow.